What is going on, folks out there? Thanks for joining us. You might be asking yourself what this is. I haven't opened it up yet, but for a little bit of backstory, I was on the phone with a friend of mine. He's out of state. Dude's name's Steve, and he's got a couple of T-Maxxes, so that might give you a little hint so far as what this is all about. He said, I found a parts car, so I'm going to go out and pick it up. And when he brought it back, we were on a video call kind of checking it out, and I was like, you know what? That's right on the brink of being like basically a for sure parts car, but maybe it has potential, and it might be kind of cool to have a look at it and see if we can't get this beast back on going again. All right, folks, let's take a look in here and see what we might be up against so far as this nearly parts car T-Maxx is concerned. Well, like I said, I had a chance to get a little sneak peek at this before my buddy fired it off to me. And whatever was going to be messed up probably ain't going to get any worse. I'm seeing like an awful lot of dirt on here. Man, down into the carb is just absolutely soaked in oil. So I'm going to get this out of the box here, pop it up onto the bench and see what's up with it. Now this guy is out of the box and we can have a little bit of a closer look at kind of the situation we're up against with it, right? I'm going to say, like, right off the rip, the thing that definitely stands out the most is this, like, homebrew kind of welded roll cage that it has going on. They're just, like, running stock up over the top of other stock, welding it. Something was up too high there by the motor, so they just welded, like, a cross member down to meet up with it. Everything looks, like, pretty slapdash and done, like, in a really strange way. You can see here that it's, like, not really attached to anything, nor is there any kind of provision for it to attach to. And the same thing is kind of true in the front. And just the more I look at this thing, just the nuttier it looks. It's probably the craziest one I've ever seen. And you can see down there in the front where it goes up into those verticals that go into that roll cage, and there's just really nothing there supporting that there either. It has a 3.3 Traxxas engine. The carb looks absolutely disgusting. And the entire surface of this is like, it's not oily like the kind of oily you would expect out of nitro. It's like crusty. This has definitely seen better days. So this resto is going to be something else entirely compared to what you're usually going to see or even going to want to mess with on your own. I noticed that, oh, it has a Robinson spur gear. That's kind of cool. Steel spur gear on there. But I noticed that the spur gear is not moving. So hopefully that just means it's out of gear. We'll go ahead and give this one a little skosh. That servo there and try to get it locked into gear and see if we get any movement on that spur. Not so far, huh? Let's give it one more. There we go. You know, we got a little bit of movement now on that spur while we're rolling it around. So the problem with power transfer, because so far on the little rolly test, we've gotten zero power transfer out of the gearbox, is probably just a hang up in the shifter. At least that's what I'm hoping for. I'm not familiar with this piece or what it does. I've never seen it before. It might be some kind of like mount for an air cleaner. I really don't have any idea. The throttle linkage here is just stuck tight. And if I could reach my finger down here and give this a try, I got a feeling like the motor. Yeah, the motor's just locked up solid. It doesn't rotate at all. The Easy Start system in this is still installed. God, the fuel lines are just, they feel like they're going to disintegrate in my fingers. It has no air filter. Hopefully it did the last time it ran. And the tires are actually, I mean, they're hard as rocks just because they've had so much age on them. And they've got so much dirt on them and got left like that. I'm seeing the differential action in the rear is still working, so that's a good sign. And the diff action in the front, that works too. And I see it's actually putting up a little bit of power through the center here up into the gearbox. But like I said, we have a couple of things to address so far as that's concerned. I did see like a huge gash in this tire. There it is right there, but it doesn't look like it actually went all the way through. So, oh, and this is a trip too. I was noticing this, but I forgot to mention it. This is like a rolly wheel for like a furniture dolly, like an old school furniture dolly that's been welded onto here as like a wheelie bar wheel. Just adds to the, I don't know, the unique charm of this roll cage setup, which is about the nicest way I could think to put it. The suspension feels pretty bad. The shocks definitely need to be rebuilt, and it has the feeling like a couple of the shock shafts are bent. Let's have a look on the underside of it. See what we're up against here. Well, there goes that roll cage, right? So right off the bat, I noticed that the front skid plate is completely gone. So hopefully it wasn't run like that. I don't see too many scratches here or anything to indicate that it was, but I really hope that it wasn't. Everything else so far is like a quick check back here. The drive shafts don't look candy caned or really anything like that. But again, everything is just absolutely encrusted with this nastiness on this particular car. And you can see up here, it kind of comes off, whatever. I've never seen anything quite as stubborn and nasty as this on an RC car anyway. Servos are here. Everything's accounted for so far as that's concerned. But so far as the rest of the electronics, I haven't had a chance to open it up and look at it, but we will do that. It's obviously running an AM radio system, and I do have some of those old Traxxas receivers kicking around. Oh, here we go. That's nice. So we've got some suspension linkage. Oh, there you go. That's just a broken ball end on there. So we'll get this all worked out and see what we're up against. All right. So another day. I'm not feeling too good. I woke up kind of feeling a little bit crappy this morning, but that's what happens when you have kids. Kids are among those, well, don't get me wrong, I love my kids, man, but kids are one of those rare parasites that just seems hell-bent on killing its host, right? Back to the action here. What I'm going to do today to start off with is get our science project modern art masterpiece roll cage off of here. And to do that, you can see that there's just this bent piece of like wire stock right there that's holding it through this incomplete, ripped apart bulkhead in the front. So I get my side cutter and go ahead and cut that one. And off comes this wonderful roll cage. We'll set that to the side, and maybe in some post-apocalyptic future, we can, that's not a bad idea for this. I'm sure this could be cut up and incorporated into something. It has kind of a cool vibe. I'm not going to lie. I guess it grew on me. Maybe I just have bad taste. I'm not sure. So now we get to have a look at this car without the roll cage on it. And what I'm seeing so far is like, earlier I didn't really want to talk that bad about the condition that this is in. It's just really easy to kind of lose your ass, so to speak, on a restoration on something like this that's been sitting for so long. You don't really know what's wrong with it, but that's kind of the point of this video. If you want to do it, I'll be here to help you do it. Now, this easy start, cheesy start system we got installed right here is going to keep us kind of from doing the next phase of this that I'm trying to do, and that's pulling the motor. On this session here, what I want to get done is I want to pull the motor and test the servos and kind of see where we're at with that, just to kind of, I don't know, get an idea for whether or not the electronics are still working or not. Now, if you have a look in here, you'll notice that like I can goose my little 2.5 millimeter. That's the size of the bolts down underneath here that hold the motor in on the tops of the motor mount. But you're going to have a little bit of trouble with that over here because this cheesy start system, the motor and gearbox portion back on this bolt are pretty much obscuring it. Like you can't really get to it. But that's no big deal because luckily for us, on the bottom side, there are some 2.5 millimeter bolts that secure the base of the motor mount to the chassis. But before we do any of that, we're going to have to disconnect all the secondary and tertiary stuff. So far as fuel lines are concerned, that's already been done for us. This fuel line here just runs a loop into the fuel tank. The fuel tank is also going to be pulled so we can clean that. And eventually we're going to pull the transmission. And one of the main reasons for all this stuff is, like I said, for the sake of the motor, between the pipe, the easy start, just the design of this chassis, you don't have any access to the flywheel through the chassis. We don't want to pull the carb and work on it and reinstall it if the motor's still going to be stuck. It'll give us a good chance to get the motor out of the way and diagnose what might be wrong with that. The carb I'm going to rebuild just as a matter of principle. I'm not going to go through rebuilding this whole motor and put back in the old carb. Risk that it has ripped up seals, dried up seals, or anything like that, or it's sucking air. It's going to just blow the motor up again, so there's no real point to it. Oh, another thing I wanted to bring up is when I'm looking at this now, this T-Maxx is from like the mid-2000s. It was a 2.5 T-Maxx. I don't believe it was a 2.5R because of the wheel choice that you see here. These 5-spoke kind of like mag wheel looking wheels were for the regular 2.5. And that being said, there's now a 3.3 engine in here, but it retains the stock 2.5 gear ratio from what I can see. I mean, I haven't gotten in here and counted teeth or anything like that, but that's a humdinger of a spur gear. You could eat your breakfast off that thing. It's huge. So I'm thinking that this gear ratio is probably retained from the 2.5 Traxxas T-Maxx gear ratio, and that's not correctly geared for this motor in this car. So hopefully the motor hasn't been spun up too much. Hopefully it's not too ripped up and we can get it going again. But we're going to start by rebuilding it. And in order to do that, like I said, it's got to come out. So first, disconnect everything that goes to it. I'm going to start with the throttle linkage right there, that little ball link that goes to the slide carb. You just get yourself onto something that has a little bit of leverage, like the heatsink head. And that'll come right off of there. So now we got that off. So far as the easy start system is concerned, we're going to have to pull that too. And all that stuff is connected to the top of the block right here and leads back to this easy start wire harness that sticks up out of this kind of stanchion on the back body post right here. So let's go ahead and pull that too. That's just a Phillips screwdriver. For the sake of what we're doing today, and because I've done so many of these, and I don't have a parts tray sitting around that's not all full of parts, I'm just going to set these kind of to the side. I'd like to replace as much of this hardware as I go back through it again with hex hardware just to make things easier in the future. Now we're kind of up against a thing where this guy here is running through the body posts. So hopefully I can pull this out and give us a little bit of extra room, which it's coming. It's not easy, but it's coming. The body posts are real bent on this. There we go. So the back body post is out, and I will not be reusing this. I have kind of an idea what I want the look of this truck to be. I don't know what body yet, but these body posts, this one's missing, and this one's in pretty rough shape. Anyway, back to what we're doing. So now your cheesy start wire harness is just kind of hanging out. This right here would have gone to the glow plug when it was hooked up, and then it's got a ground wire, so those two prongs there is like light up the glow plug, and the other one spin the starting system. So like we talked about, we can't get in through the top, so we're going to have to go in through the bottom. That's going to be a 2.5 millimeter hex. I got my trusty MIP tools over here, so let's let her rip. All right. So we got 4 bolts underneath here that are going to hold this into place. And hopefully, you know, I was going to say it's a little bit unpredictable with these older cars whether or not anything's going to go your way. But in a lot of ways, some of these old beat up cars, that's kind of what makes them fun. And looking at this now, it's not as horrible as I thought, you know. Things are coming out kind of nicely. It's not too bad. I'm going to hold the motor in place so it doesn't just fall out all over the place. Oh, and look at me. I forgot to disconnect the pipe. So the pipe has this one Phillips screw that's holding it into the pipe hanger. And we want the motor to come out kind of all in one piece, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that one. Got it. All right. Now let's give her a wiggle and see if we missed anything. There we go. Ladies and germs, pulled right out of there. And like we talked about earlier, that carb is just about as stuck as one dumb thing could be. And I am getting absolutely nothing out of trying to rotate this. Okay? So that's what we have so far as that one's concerned. I'm going to go ahead and set that assembly to the side. We'll get into it in a little while. And while we're here, this is still there, just sitting there. So we might as well just flip it over. And let's pull the fuel tank. The fuel tank is going to be the same thing as before. 4 bolts accessible from the bottom side of the chassis. But these are going to be Phillips. And that Phillips screwdriver just barely makes it past that chassis rail. Later on, we'll see if the fuel tank still seals. Clean it up with a special concoction I like to make. And if all goes as planned, I think this fuel tank will be reusable. If not, I'm pretty sure I have an extra of these laying around. Okay, we lift this up. Whoops, out comes the fuel tank. Oh man, you see all that turpentine inside there, folks? So that's exactly why we're going to want to clean that up. You can imagine that if you rebuild this whole motor and go through all that trouble and then put fuel in this fuel tank looking like it does and having that crap in there that it does, yeah, just look at that right there. Absolutely nasty. You don't want your brand new rebuilt engine sucking up that stuff. So we're going to do what we got to do to prevent that. So far as the rebuild goes, like I said, we're going to be pulling out the transmission also, but I'm going to wait on that. And right now, let's have a look, kind of look into our crystal ball and see what we're going to be up against so far as the radio system and servos are concerned. So we got 2 screws on either side of the receiver box right here. The battery box kind of looked like it was missing, but it's here. It's just not secured. And the battery portion is not looking all that good. So of course you can test your servos with a radio system. I have a discrete servo tester. It's like a little box that I like to use to test these. And it works a little bit easier. Don't have to get out a bunch of bulky stuff. So we're just going to end up using that one. So like we talked about prior, this is a Traxxas AM receiver. I'm really not trying to break anything when I get this out of here. So let's see here. There we go. Pushed it in through the top. There's the receiver right there, and you can see all the servos leading into it. I'm seeing a lot of stripped wires coming off of this, and this situation here, if you can see it, that's the leads coming in from the battery box for the voltage supply to the radio system. This almost definitely created a short. So it's kind of a good thing that we didn't just try to fire this up, because that kind of stuff can be damaging to your electronics. We have channels 1, 2, and 3 on this one. I believe 1 is going to be steering, 2 is your throttle channel for your throttle and brakes, and the 3rd channel is for your forward and reverse, which very likely will be eliminated on this build. I usually do a forward only conversion on these, but we can start with it. Why not? Let's get our servo tester. So that's that little guy right there, and this little thing that I made. Okay. And get our servo. You hook it in. There we go. I can see that the forward reverse is articulating the little plunger that goes in there to shift the transmission. But we are not getting anything out of it so far as power transfer is concerned still. So that will necessitate cracking open the transmission, which I was kind of anticipating anyway. So that one's good to go. Now let's go ahead and test. I think this is the steering servo. We've got action on the steering servo. It does not sound healthy, but it is working. And that will likely be replaced with something a little bit higher torque, just to make this truck's performance shine through a little bit better than it would with a stock, worn out servo. So we got that one. Now let's go ahead and check throttle. The throttle servo, besides braking power, and you want speed on the throttle servo on these things, it's not as important as the steering servo. Let's see where we're at with it. What do you know? That works too. And I can see here, oh, we don't have any power transfer, so I can't, oh, I can test the brake. The brake is going. The brake is not going, so we have brakes. And the throttle would operate if it weren't for the fact that our carb is completely stuck shut. So that's a pretty good little step right there. We have removed the motor, removed the fuel tank, taken the radio tray apart, diagnosed all the servos, which are all working, discovered this problem here, which is, this here is a pretty bad problem. And I know some folks out there might be thinking, oh, come on, dude, it's 4 AA's, it's only 6 volts. You don't need stuff like this, because at the very least, shorting stuff out is wasting electricity. At the worst, it can seriously damage your electronics. So we try to stay away from that as much as we can.